If you're a producing agent or growing a team, at some point you hit this wall. And it's not a production wall, it's a capacity wall. You're likely doing everything right. Business is good, leads are coming in, deals are closing, and you may be completely buried. Today, I want to walk you through how to actually know when it's time to hire. I get this question all the time because most agents wait way too long, and by the time they finally do it, they're not hiring from strategy, they're hiring from desperation or panic. So let's start with the sign everybody ignores. So sign number 1, that you are in need of hiring. You're doing $10 to $15 an hour work at a $500 an hour skill set. So if you are the one entering contacts into your CRM, formatting your own listing flyers, manually following up with leads, that's a big one, you are trading your highest value hours for tasks likely any executive assistant could do. And I see this constantly with agents doing 6 and 7 figures in production who still can't let go of the small stuff. That is not discipline, though you may think it is. That's a bottleneck, and it's costing you the deals you're too tired to ultimately chase. So I had an agent I coached years ago who was closing 30 plus deals a year and still building her own flyers at around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. When we finally sat down and mapped out her week, almost 15 hours of it was tasks that had nothing to do with her actual skill set, negotiations, listings, pricings, etc. 15 hours. So that's basically 2 extra work days she got back in the month that she finally hired. Sign number 2, your response time may be slipping, not because you don't care, but because you literally cannot get to everything. A lead can come in and it sits for 4 or 5 hours instead of 4 minutes. So a past client texts you, you don't see it until maybe the next day. That gap is where deal quality dies. And it is rarely a motivation problem. It's usually a bandwidth problem. And then ultimately sign number 3, you've said, I'll get to it about the same tasks for over a month. This is the one I want you to actually sit with. I want you to go back through that task list right now, mentally or maybe even literally, and find the things that you've been meaning to do for weeks. A system to build, a process, a document, a follow-up sequence you may be keeping in the back of your mind to set up. If it's been sitting there for a month or more, it's not on your list because you're not lazy. It's not getting done because you don't have the capacity for it. And you won't magically find capacity. You have to create it and leverage it. And that means bringing someone in. Here's a mistake I see agents make once they finally do decide to hire. So if you're there, be very careful hiring for the wrong person for the wrong role. Ultimately, hiring a transaction coordinator when the real bottleneck leads up in paperwork, or when it's follow-up for leads, maybe it's an executive assistant. So before you post a job listing, ask yourself this: what are the tasks that if it disappeared from your plate tomorrow would free up the most hours and give you back the most mental energy right now? That's the role you're hiring for. Not the flashiest one, not the one you may think you're supposed to hire for first. The one that's actually really bottlenecking your week is the one. So I'm in the middle of this exact process for myself right now, bringing on a new team member. And the framework doesn't change no matter what stage of the business you're in. You identify the bottleneck first, you hire for the bottleneck, not for the ultimate title. So one more thing before you go post your job listing: don't skip the training plan just because you're excited to get the help. The number one reason a first hire fails isn't necessarily that they're a bad hire. It's an owner who ultimately hands off the tasks with 0 systems behind it and expects the new person to just read their minds. So if you don't have documentation, SOPs that they can do, find, and actually implement, then that is your first step. So here's your action step this week. Write down every task you did yesterday, all of it. Go through the list and mark anything that doesn't require your specific judgment, your license, or your relationships. That is your hiring list. That is where you start.